So the school that we're talking about right now, there is going to be no spirituality. Only if you listen to your Bible or Gita or what this person said or what that person said, with their own lives just see what a mess they are. This is what education has done to you. People are successful in their life not because they have degrees, not because they have university certificates. In the Gurukul, the Guru had to just teach them how to exist, how to live. We don't want to bring spirituality into a child's life. Whether you talk spirituality to him or you don't, he will anyway turn spiritual, not about talking about God or some nonsense. And that's spirituality.
Sadhguru, you mentioned the school. What is your vision in using education to produce an ideal human being? How do you balance an international standard of education along with spiritual values?
So the school that we're talking about right now, there is going to be no spirituality. No spirituality at all. We don't want to bring spirituality into a child's life. We will teach them some simple forms of yoga for mental and physical health, that's different. But no spirituality will be brought to them as a part of education, never. Because spirituality should not be brought about like that. Maybe after they finish their education, if they want to go through a stint of 3 months or 6 months of spiritual training, they can, that's by choice. That anybody can go through. But the children who… because the premises also we will move it out, only 1 or 2 years it'll be in the ashram, after that we will move it out close by. Already we're making necessary arrangements for that. So the school will not try to teach any spirituality. At the same time, we just want to cultivate a certain openness in the human being. See, somebody turns successfully spiritual because he has developed a certain openness about life. He has no conclusions about anything, he is willing to look at everything. This is something we will cultivate in the child, that the child learns to look at every aspect of life with absolute openness, without prejudice, without any religious, cultural or any kind of inclinations, with absolute openness to every aspect of life. If that happens, whether you talk spirituality to him or you don't, he will anyway turn spiritual. Spirituality will be a natural part of his life, not something that he pursues going to an ashram or someplace. It'll be just a natural part of his life because he has developed an openness to every aspect of life. And actually, education was supposed to be that right from the beginning. The very purpose of educating people is to broaden their horizons, isn't it? But you tell me, as people are getting educated, are they broadening their horizons or are they becoming very narrow? See, just let's say 50 years ago, in India there still are such families, but everywhere in the world, people lived in large families. In India, 300, 400 people lived in one house, huge families. There was no big problem, They knew how to adjust with each other and go on because 400 people living in one place is a challenge. That's what the ashram is. Now we are back into that old system of being one large family, and this is even more challenging because there are different types of people from different cultures, different languages, different attitudes, different likes and dislikes, but living together without friction needs enormous maturity and a very broad way of looking at life, otherwise you cannot. But just see now, as modern education came, slowly we can't even live with our own parents anymore. We just thought husband, wife, children, this is family. But now in the last 15–20 years, even that is going away. Family means just you. Your husband has to live in a separate house, you in a separate house. Together you won't last 10 days. Children have to be there separately. Somewhere else they must be. In one place, even 2–3 people cannot live together, isn't it? This is what education has done to you. It has not broadened your horizons. It somewhere made you so narrow and individualistic. You're no more inclusive, you're becoming very exclusive, isn't it? The inclusion is totally gone. The whole idea of educating a person is that he is just living in a narrow sphere of life. You educate him, make him know about the whole world and broaden his whole perspective of life. Education means inclusion, isn't it? But the kind of education we are imparting to the children, it is making them so highly exclusive, they can't even stand one more person in their life. See, most people have gotten themselves into a situation, they can't live with anybody anymore, isn't it? So, that is not just individual, it is it's the phenomena of the world, it's a generational phenomena because of the kind of education that's being imparted. So we want to impart an education which is highly inclusive, that as you grow, you include the whole world as yourself and live, and that's spirituality. So spirituality will not be taught. Education itself is spirituality, because education is about broadening your horizons, not about talking about God or some nonsense. So, we want children to grow up keeping their intelligence intact, not suppressive education, where the child's thirst to know is kindled, but he is not forced to learn. So, the longing to know, the longing to learn has to be brushed up within the child, not just feeding with enormous amount of information and expecting him to pass. This will not be like that. This will be a very different type of structure. At the same time, by the time they are 16, 17, we will prepare them for any university in the world, they will be ready to go. They will be ready enough to get into any kind of university according to their individual capabilities, of course. But apart from that, they're fundamentally learning to live better. They're learning to handle themselves better and live better with themselves and with people around them, which is very important factor. And people are successful in their life not because they have degrees, not because they have university certificates, it's because they're capable, isn't it? So, this school will be more capability-oriented, not qualification-oriented. We are seeing how to enhance the capability of the child in whatever area his natural talent is, rather than trying to just make him qualified with a certain, certificate attached to him.
Sadhguru, whatever you said about the school and the education just now, it's modern and contemporary, but what about the ancient schools, the gurukuls of the past, were they not successful in producing good human beings?
The ancient gurukuls were definitely like this. The ancient gurukul was 100% the way I am talking. The very purpose and the basic function of the guru was to destroy all the things that you have assumed as true. But now the education also involves equipping the person to earn his living and make his living in the world. So we have those twin challenges. At that time, the guru was not trying to impart, skills for him to go and survive in the society. Because if your father is a cobbler, you naturally became a cobbler. If your father is a king, you became a king. If your father is something else, you became that. You didn't have to be equipped to make a living in some other way in ancient times. So the Guru was only educating them towards the realization. So the job was more, I would say more simple, because it was unidimensional. But now it's not like that, both the things need to happen. We have to equip the child to live in the modern world and still not mess him up with the nonsense that's happening in the name of modernity. So it's a much bigger challenge today than what it was then. And at that time, once the parents gave the children to the Guru, they left him there in complete his authority. Now the parents are very nosy, you know. They won't leave the children food, they want to constantly meddle with that, they want to put in their own stuff into it, all those issues are there. So it's much more complex today than it was in the Gurukul. In the Gurukul, the Guru had to just teach them how to exist, how to live, how to be with somebody else, how to be with himself. This is all. He was not trying to equip him to a modern university. So, those days only a few children who had a very academic bent of mind or a very scholastic bent of mind, such children was trained in scholarly matters. All the other children naturally went to their father's profession, whatever it was. Now it is not so. Even if the father is a cobbler, he wants his son to become a professor. That's the situation in the world today, isn't it?
But you're saying there'll be no spirituality in the school, isn't that a shortcoming?
I'm saying no spirituality as a teaching, as a method. But at the same time, if a child grows without assuming anything, if he grows up without any nonsense, he's naturally spiritual. Because if he lives without the influence of other people upon him, if he lives by his own natural intelligence, turning spiritual is a very natural process. Only because most of the people are not living by their natural intelligence, they are living by imposed education upon them. Spirituality is a faraway thing in people's lives. Otherwise, if people live by their natural intelligence, turning spiritual will be a very normal process for most of the people, except a very small percentage who won't go that way for various other reasons. So, when I say no spirituality, we are not going to sit there and talk to them about how to attain enlightenment, what to do, this, no. But at the same time, the education process itself is such where there is no messing with the child, no influence, no religion, no imposition of any kind of ideas or beliefs, where child has to figure out things for himself. If you are allowed to figure out things for yourself, there is no other way but to turn inward, to know things about life. Only if you listen to your Bible or Gita or what this person said or what that person said, then you don't have to turn inward to know. It's already written there. If you don't read any of that stuff, when you start thinking about life, when you start looking at life, the only place to look is naturally inward, isn't it? Where else will you look? One day it happened. A lady who was a big professor in the university bought herself a home appliance, a little complex home appliance. She took it home, she read the instructions and tried to put it together, all those pieces that came in the package. She just tried very hard, she couldn't put it together. She left all those parts in a heap and went to work. When she came back in the evenings, to her surprise, the appliance was properly assembled and already used. She called the maid and asked, "Who fixed this?" She said, "I did." She couldn't believe it. "How did you do this?" Then the maid said, When you don't know how to read and write, you have to use your brains. We want to teach the children how to use their brains, not just to read and write. Read and write is important, but using your brains is more important, isn't it? Just see, lots of educated people who are very successful in their careers and things like that, with their own lives, just see what a mess they are. Obviously, they're not using their brains when it comes to their life, isn't it so? The very way they are, it is very obvious they are not using their brains when it comes to their own life. They know how to go and, become doctors, engineers, become big academics and all that stuff. But when it comes to their own life, it looks like they have no brains at all, because they've forgotten how to use it. It's not that they don't have it. So, education should, stimulate your brain, not dull your brain, isn't it? Education should stimulate your intelligence, not take it off. Today, education scientists in the world are saying, if a child goes through 20 years of formal education, 70% of his intelligence is irrevocably destroyed. That means you're coming out as a knowledgeable idiot. And that's a huge disservice to humanity, isn't it? It's a huge disservice to humanity if you're just destroying the child's intelligence, because the future of the world is just in their brains, isn't it so? Whether we are going to produce beautiful things on the planet or very destructive bombs on the planet or something else more destructive than that, simply depends on how well coordinated this person's emotions, intelligence and all these things, how well coordinated a human being is. That is how he's going to use his intelligence and that is what he's going to produce in the world, isn't it? See, the most intelligent people in the world have contributed to all the violence on the planet. Otherwise, violence wouldn't be happening in the scale in which it is happening. See, people have always been essentially violent, a certain segment of the people. Whether he was a caveman or later on, Bronze Age, Iron Age, whatever you take, they've always been violent. Initially when he was a caveman, he killed with stone, that's Stone Age. Iron Age means he killed with iron. Bronze Age means he killed with bronze. Nuclear Age means he kills nuclear, okay? They've always been essentially violent. But the scale of violence that can happen today has happened because the best brains in the world have cooperated with this, isn't it? Yes? The best brains in the world have worked to create the most violent ways to kill humanity, isn't it? If the intelligent in the world had not cooperated, the violent man would kill one or two with a stick or stone or something. But only because the intelligent person in the world has cooperated, now the violent man can kill in millions. So, intelligence twisted out against our own well-being is no intelligence. Right now, human intelligence has become like this. It's not a blessing, it's a curse. Intelligence is the biggest blessing that a human being has. But right now it has become a curse upon humanity, simply because the human being is not coming out as a well-coordinated being. He is dislocated human being within himself. This intelligence is dangerous. If you were like a donkey, you would only kick, nothing more, isn't it? The maximum violence you would cause is kick with both your legs, nothing more. But now, human intelligence has become so dangerous. What should have been a blessing has become such a big curse. And education is definitely playing a huge role in that.